Thanks for tuning in to the Soapbox, where it's our quest to help marketing suck less. With your hosts, Justin Stutz, a minivan driving father of four, who knows the lyrics of far too many 90s rap songs and has dedicated his life to finding Sasquatch, along with Justin Tucker, a self-proclaimed contrarian and pizza enthusiast who fully consumes too much Red Bull and understands his puppy is by far his most redeeming quality. Here, they'll be breaking down real-life marketing and advertising examples with crazy awesome, impressive, and often opinionated guests. Diving into the head-scratching, the forehead-slapping, the belly-laughing, and the awe-inspiring of it all. Now, here's your hosts, Justin and Justin.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Soapbox, where it is our quest to help marketing suck just a little bit less. And guys, I am really excited about the guest that we have on our show today. He's a personal friend, someone that I've known for, what's going on, got to be 12, 13, 14 years. We just absolutely collaborate and brainstorm from a marketing standpoint throughout that relationship, and I've always respected his insight and creativity. And guys, he actually started out as one of us on the real estate side in the lending world, but has now kind of reinvented himself over the years and went and found a lot of opportunity in the beer industry. Worked for, I think, Rogue Brewing, had an opportunity to actually have a stint where he worked with Starbucks, and then transitioned back into the beer industry. Is it you're at Elysian now? Is that right, Nick?
Yeah, at Elysian Brewing up in Seattle.
And so here we have a gentleman who not only understands our industry, but now is in a hyper-competitive and incredibly creative space for time and attention, especially with all of the breweries popping up and the brands popping up. So Nick, Mallory, welcome to the show. We're really excited to have you today, man.
Thanks. I really appreciate it, buddy. It's great to see you again. I had 12 years, 13, 14 years. I can't believe it's gone by quick. So it's good to see you again, bud.
Yeah, it used to be golf tournaments in Guinness, and now we're collaborating about marketing, so I love it.
I love how you have grown up so much.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Right before
it's
our
still
eyes.
Guinness.
And I got to say, you have one of the most interesting backgrounds we've ever had on the show, so congratulations on that.
Nothing like a tiger with laser beams coming out of its eyes to add a little flavor to the show. So whatever we can do.
I love it. Well, guys, today we wanted to talk, it's a little bit different than some of our past shows. We don't have an advertisement necessarily to look through today, but it was something that Nick actually tossed over to Justin a couple of weeks ago that kind of blew both of our minds. And it brought up this idea of creativity in our marketing and got us asking a lot of really good questions. And, for me, it's like, why do we not take risks in the marketing that we do? We kind of put ourselves in this box where everything is safe and comfortable. We don't have to worry about the consequences necessarily. But the other side of that is that everything that's noteworthy that we talk about, around the water cooler or whatever, is always over the top creative. And so it's kind of this weird place where, as marketing guys, we like to be safe to make sure that, nothing goes wrong, but nothing great ever happens unless you take risks. And Nick, this case study that you brought to us is such a great example of not only creativity in the marketing, but also turning your weakness into a strength. And it's just an amazing story. So can you kind of take us through that case study, and that'll be a good jumping off point for us.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I love this case study personally, and I'm completely addicted to Burger King for their marketing. I love a Whopper, I guess, as much as the next, red-blooded American, but what they're doing in their marketing, especially their voice on the social space, is incredible. And you talked about taking risks. They're certainly doing that in spades. So kind of a little bit of background. Our team here at Elysian, the game in craft beer. So when I started in craft beer about 10 years ago. There were 3,000 craft breweries in this country. We're now screaming towards 8,000. The name of the game is awareness. Elysian might be big in Seattle, but is Elysian big in Kansas? So the idea is, how do you increase that awareness? How do you get eyeballs? How do you get attention? And so we're kind of constantly challenging ourselves with, how do we do things that kind of capture that attention, that are on brand? Where can we take risks? Where can we take big swings? And I met with the team and I said, look, I got a case study for you that I love. And, hopefully this will be a little bit kind of germane or analogous to what we're trying to do as a brand with kind of capture some of that attention. So Burger King, all of this whole thing started off with kind of this weird starting point. And the starting point is the fact that Burger King has way fewer locations than McDonald's. And most of the revenue nowadays, I know I sound like such an old man, but most of the revenue nowadays comes through the drive-through. Actually, JT, you talked about Starbucks. The majority of Starbucks revenue at their stores, it used to be sit-in a while ago. You'd go there, you'd sit there for 20 hours and have like 4 cups of coffee. Now it's mostly drive-through. So the world is drive-through oriented, and Burger King is no different. But because there are fewer restaurants, Burger King had an issue that it was harder to get to these restaurants and there were longer drive times. So what they did is they partnered with Waze on trying to figure out, okay, how do we kind of gamify the drive time for our customers? Are there ways where we can like give customers like mileage allowances, and like if you traveled the furthest to get a Whopper, you win so many points? And they did all these different, how many extra miles have you gone to get your Whopper? And they tried to kind of gamify it in a bunch of different ways. But the heads of the marketing team said, okay, that's good, but let's keep working on it. Like the idea isn't there, right? Like the idea isn't, you got to have an idea that people can grab a hold of, right? That people kind of resonates with people. And then they came up with this idea of the secret Whopper. So they started off with some facts. Burger King has significantly fewer stores than McDonald's, right? How do you turn those fewer stores into an opportunity, reward drivers for going the extra mile? But how do you turn our competitors' stores into our stores? And that was the idea that really galvanized the team. How do we take something that is a perceived weakness and make it a strength? And when I read that in this case study, I was like I got goosebumps now talking to you about it, because I love that. I mean, here we are in a hyper competitive market. How do we take our competitor's strength and make it our strength, right? So what they did is they went around, this took them over a year to complete. They completely reimagined their mobile experience. And what they did is they went around and geo-targeted all of these, I think 25,000 McDonald's locations across the country. And if you opened up the Burger King app and got within 600 feet of a McDonald's, you got a coupon for a 1-cent Whopper at the nearest Burger King, and it routed you to the nearest Burger King. The trick was, and the tagline, which, marketing guy, I love taglines, like, give me a just do it. I'll take a just do it every day. The secret Whopper is only available at McDonald's. And I was like, that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. Like, and the other thing, at Elysian, we have a flagship beer. So we have Space Dust IPA, which most people know us for. It's kind of our biggest product across the country. We sometimes try to get away from it. We're like, okay, we want to build up the rest of our portfolio. What else do we have? But you can't negate the fact that most people know you for this one singular product. Burger King wanted to change the Whopper. They wanted to do something different to it. But the heads of the marketing team said, no, we got to go with our number one swing. And that's what they did. The secret Whopper was instead just a regular Whopper because it was iconic. And to sell your most iconic product, essentially your competitor's store was like this big WTF moment, right? Like it was this big, that's incredible. And so the stats on this thing were staggering. They called it the Whopper detour. You'd go find a McDonald's, you'd get a Whopper for a penny, and then it'd route you to the nearest Burger King. And the activations they did on social were incredible. They did these commercials. There's actually this long story with their internal legal department of like, can we go up to a McDonald's drive-through and like order a Whopper and show them the app? And how does that legally? And they figured out that if they like blurred the faces and blurred the logos, they could get away with it. It was this incredible campaign. They capped it off when they launched it with a single tweet. And the tweet said, BRB, going to McDonald's from Burger King. And that like kicked off the whole campaign. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. I kind of showed it to the team, you know, with the question mark, like, what do you think, and did it work? And it overwhelmingly worked. Like, their engagement went through the roof. I think it was like 3.2 billion impressions on this thing. It made all kinds of news channels. You know, here I am, just some stupid beer guy in Seattle talking to my team about it. So obviously it resonated. And what I told the team is, again, quickly here with the case study, there were really 5 big ideas that came out of it, like 5 big lessons, because that's what we're trying to do with case studies, right? What are the lessons? Lesson number 1, let the idea grow, right? I love this line, and I wanted to put this line like on our wall. They said, one of their heads of marketing said, when a lion is born, it's easy to kill. The idea being is that even something that is incredibly powerful, even something that is incredibly like, you know, a game-changing idea, when it's in its early stages, it's easy to go, no, that sucks, right? Let the lion grow up, because when a lion grows up, it's impossible to kill, right? So let the idea grow. Big ideas matter, taking big swings. Without big ideas, beer certainly is boring as hell. You know, I'm sure your guys' industry is boring as hell without big ideas. So big ideas matter. The power of fun. Don't ever forget the power of fun. The head of go ahead.
Like on that one, I think it's what caught me off guard about this so much and got me excited about it. The deck that you sent over, and as I went and looked online, we started seeing all of these crazy posts of people driving through McDonald's, ordering burgers and wanting to share it out on their social because they wanted to be a part of something. They were having fun with this. They were getting to feel like a part of a bigger community and sharing that. Like, and it was simply because it became trendy and cool to go to a McDonald's and snap a photo of yourself going to burger or ordering, asking for a Whopper so you could go to Burger King. Like, I love that like, stop removing fun from the idea of marketing because it's powerful.
Yeah, the CMO of Burger King said, don't underestimate fun. It can bend logic. And I love that line of it can bend logic, right? I thought it was just absolutely brilliant. The other lesson, if it were easy, someone else would have done it, right? So like, don't be afraid to tackle hard things. It took them over a year to pull this together. And remember the long-term benefits. So like, one of the interesting sort of epilogues to this case study for Burger King is the effect that it had on revenue even a year later. Like, even a year later, they were 15xing their revenue through their mobile app. It was crazy. Like, the Whopper became super profitable for them. It was a big, it's a really big initiative for them that had a super long tail. And the biggest takeaway for me, and what I left my team with, was one of my greatest lessons that I learned in marketing, ironically enough, JT, like after I left the mortgage industry. So after I left the mortgage industry, I went to work in marketing for a couple of different companies. I really pivoted my career. I loved marketing. I wanted to do that with the rest of my life. And I went to work for Rogue Ales in Portland. And Rogue is a brewery that's founded by ex-Nike guys, the guys that brought Michael Jordan to market, the guy that actually created the first Rogue logo, developed the Jumpman logo for Nike. So there's like a crazy heritage there. One of the guys that was an early advisor for Rogue was a guy named Rob Strasser, and he went on to found Adidas America. That's one of the reasons why Adidas America is in Portland. And he's a really, really brilliant marketing guy. And he said every single marketing initiative should have 6 components to it, right? And these 6 components were paramount to any marketing initiative. In fact, he wrote them down on a scratch piece of paper, and that piece of paper was framed in one of the Rogue offices with like his chicken scratches. And it was, every idea should be simple, interesting, meaningful, unique, unexpected, and understandable. So like, where a lot of these marketing initiatives fail, and where the initial Burger King marketing initiative failed with Waze, with collecting the miles, is that it wasn't simple. It was difficult to explain. It wasn't easily understandable. Yeah, it was unexpected and unique, but not necessarily hugely meaningful. I'll tell you what, a Whopper for a penny at a McDonald's location hits all 6 of those things like a home run. And if you look at marketing initiatives and products that have come out, my favorite example is the iPod when it first came out. 10,000 songs in your pocket. Like that simple, interesting, meaningful, unique, unexpected, and understandable. So that was really my big lesson from my team for this case study and why it resonated with me so much.
So Justin, so let's bring this into what we do, right? So, I mean, Nick, man, like I've been writing notes this entire time, which is fantastic. But so from where you sit as the CMO, Tucker, of, you know, a large company, like how does this actually matter to, like, how do we take this McDonald's and Burger King idea and put it into practice with what we're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the question, right? Is where does this layer of creativity hit our business? And of course, we don't have the budgets that a Burger King has, the marketing teams that a Burger King has, but it's still one of those things to me of fast food seems hard to differentiate. Nick, I love having you on the show because beer seems hard to differentiate. You know what's incredibly hard to differentiate in? Real estate, right? Whether you're in lending, whether you're a real estate agent, whether you're a title company. I mean, we're self-aware in what we do every day and how hard it is to differentiate. And then what it breeds is this kind of copycat marketing where you see someone else do something, so you do it. And what really happens with that is white noise, is people get numb to it. They see the same 3 words that you use to describe, you know, your business, or everyone talks about how they give the greatest service and that's really hard to quantify and prove, or everyone goes back to experiences or awards or things like that. And yet what would probably stick out to people when they're being inundated with these messages is some layer of disruption. And I don't love that word, but I think the meaning sticks out here, is how can we break the sea of monotony and have, you know, a tiger shooting lasers out of his eyeballs so that people see it and go, okay, I'm going to pay attention. And that's where I love this conversation. I mean, Burger King took it to the nth degree. It doesn't have to be that far in our space, but there is a massive opportunity to embrace our creative side and try to connect with people in a more meaningful and fun way than what we're doing currently. And again, like I said, title included, we're just as guilty of it.
Well, here's the problem though. Creativity is hard, right? And it's scary. So like, Nick, tell me, what's your advice for people in our space, you know, the real estate agent, the title company? How do you break through the barrier of being hard and scary? Because, you know, it's not easy to come up with these types of campaigns and you never really know what the results are, right? Like Burger King spent a year and who knows how much money on that, which we just don't have the luxury of being able to do. So like, how do you break through that?
And you don't want to offend anyone too on the other side
right.
of that. Yeah. I mean, you have to first be able to come up with an idea and then make sure that idea doesn't do brand harm.
Right. Go to somebody else's open house, snap a picture and send it to me and I'll send you a gift card. Right. So
yeah,
like, what's your advice there?
You know, it's a great question. And in a lot of ways, it's kind of the $1 million question. And I'll use the beer industry as a way to kind of create maybe a through line between beer and real estate. So get ready, Tuck. This is the dream, buddy. I'm going to connect beer and real estate.
I'm surprised
what we worked our whole careers for.
I mean,
he might start crying if you do this well.
So one of the things that I always talk about in the beer industry is that good beer is the price of entry. No one cares if your beer is good or not because it's supposed to be good. Like that's what you're doing this for. And it used to be back in the late 90s when there was like 500 breweries in the country that was a differentiatable quality. Like our beer is better than the other guys or the other persons. And, you know, our awards mattered and we won an award at the Great American Beer Festival for our stout or whatever. That doesn't matter anymore because beer quality and our beer tastes good is the price of entry. It has to be there. And in real estate, I would presume, having been out of the game for quite a while, the thing I hear about all the time, or at least I heard about, 12, 13, 14 years ago, is service. Like our service is really great. Well, it's supposed to be great. Everybody's supposed to have great service. And if you have crappy service, you're not going to be doing this very long because that's the price of entry. Where we try to differentiate ourselves in beer is looking for one-of-one opportunities. This was one of the first lessons I learned from Jack Joyce, the founder of Rogue. Look for one-of-one opportunities. And one-of-one opportunities don't have to be some geo-targeted app that you spend $20 million on that takes you a year to do. It's where can you go that your competitors aren't? And yeah, that's easy for me to say on the phone, but in beer, we look at the landscape. What unique partnerships are there that we can jump onto? We partnered with the local Seattle professional rugby team, which is an awesome partnership for us. It's really new. It's growing. They won the championship this year, but it's a one-of-one opportunity, right? Like there isn't anybody else playing in that space. You know, can you do stuff with your packaging, and can you do stuff with your story? Can you leverage what's unique about your brewery that no one else can? You know, there are 164 breweries in Seattle, I think, but we're the largest brewery in Seattle. What can we do with that? How can we leverage that? You know, that enables us the opportunity to go in spaces where others can't.
Nick, and I just thinking back of just some of the things you've done with us. Like I remember when you were still in Portland, I think working at Widmer, you donated kegs to our bocce ball tournament that we had, where it was just we had 600 or so people there and real estate agents and everything, but you guys were like, hey, there's a place where we can go where we're going to get brand recognition where no one else at. Plus you got goodwill out of us. And then you mentioned packaging. And if we move that back to, you know, branding and how your company looks, and I want to be very cautious in how I say this, but I'm also going to be very opinionated. You know, when I walk into like a Safeway and go into the beer section, and there are times where I just am in this mood where I want to try something new, and 100% of the decision that I make is based on what label speaks to me, right? What thing did just kind of catch my eye or connect to me. And in the real estate space, if I have to see, you know, one more logo that is just the roof of a house on top of the name, you know, I'm not saying that that's a bad logo. What I'm saying is there's so many people who do it. And so like, I really watch in the beer industry, you guys try to differentiate yourselves by how your packaging looks to catch people's eye and to get a little bit more time and attention. I don't know if that translates directly into real estate, but I'll tell you, almost all real estate logos look alike. They look very similar.
Yeah, I mean, in beer, what has become kind of a trend is like templatizing your logos. So what breweries want to do is they want to create this billboard effect, which is like fancy marketing speak for how a variety of your products look on shelf. So they create like similar templates, and you just change the template a little bit per the style of beer. You know, we never wanted to do that. We wanted each label to be, you know, again, tiger with laser beams, right? And catch people's eye. We wanted it to be arresting. That stuff matters. You know, I had a neighbor ask me one time, he's got 2 little kids. He said, you know, he always teases me about my job because I'm wearing a baseball hat and a t-shirt, and, you know, this is my work attire, right? And he said, you know, I can't explain to my kid what marketing does. I don't know what you do. And I said, okay, so let me ask you a question. You're a guy in his 40s who's living in the suburbs in Seattle, and you drive a $50,000 Jeep Rubicon that's meant for 4-wheel driving, and you've never seen a trail before in your life. And plus it barely ever snows here. That's what marketing is. So
I love that so much.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's like, you know, that stuff matters. And, you know, Stutz, to your point, you brought up a great point, man, about creativity. And that's something that is a big struggle. At Elysian, everything we do is in-house. So we have these, you know, we have like 5 graphic designers on staff, and we're always trying to like conjure up creative ideas. We have these big creative jam sessions where we try to figure out our next big initiative. The best piece of advice that I can give about creativity is you have to create an environment where it can come from anywhere. Goose Island, one of our brother breweries in our portfolio, they did that field goal challenge. I don't know if you guys heard about this or if you saw it.
In Chicago.
Yeah, so Chicago kicker for the Chicago Bears misses a field goal. Goose Island says, you guys think that you're all genius. If you can hit the same field goal, we'll give you beer for life. Now, you can't give away beer for life, so they made it another prize. That idea came from a guy way down the chain. Like, that's not their VP of marketing making that decision. It was some guy who was watching the game. He called his, you know, buddy on the team and said, hey, what if we did that? So that idea came from some place that wasn't necessarily like the normal place that an idea would come from.
Yeah,
The second piece of it, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I love that. I think that you got to look for inspiration everywhere and from everybody, which means you have to be consuming and paying attention. And then I don't want to call it time blocking, because I think that's the wrong term for it. But you said you guys have these creative, jam sessions or whatever. You got to put a mechanism in place in your business where you create time to be creative, where you're like, okay,
Right.
we're together and we're just going to create a dialogue and we're going to see where it goes. And there's no rules to it. There's no box to it, where we'll move ideas down the chain. I remember watching I think it was a profile on the creators of South Park a while back, who, again, could be wildly inappropriate, but also wildly creative. And every time that they got ready to do a show, their 6 to 8 people went into a room with a whiteboard, shut the door, sat around the table, and they would just start talking and see where it went. And every rabbit hole they would go down. Can we vet this? Where is it going to go? Now, again, we're not creating, episodes of South Park, but I would ask the real estate community or title sales reps or people in lending or whoever's listening, when was the last time you were intentionally creating an environment with other smart or fun people to collaborate on creative ideas? I mean, when was the last time you had a mechanism like that in place in your business?
No, it's a good point. The other thing, you kind of mentioned it, but I want to reiterate that I think a big part of this creativity, and we've talked about this before, is paying attention and consuming, right? Because unless you're constantly consuming information about your vertical, about other verticals, which is why we love talking to guys like Nick, but unless you're constantly paying attention and consuming content in those spaces, you're never going to have a creative idea, right? You've got to feed that stuff into your brain to have it come out in some other form that is creative, right?
Yeah, I mean, when Nick and I get together and have a beer once a year, we're like, oh, we'll get together for an hour. We end up talking for 4, because I love getting exposure to things outside of our industry that might translate into it. And that's why we wanted to have a guest like Nick on our show. Is, if we just brought in real estate agent or real estate influencer after real estate influencer, there's a lot there. It's great information, but we don't ever get exposure to other business or other industries that could be doing creative things that might work really well in ours. So, I mean, that's the whole reason for bringing in really smart people and letting them tell us about what they're focused on.
Love it. Well, guys, this is a good place to kind of wrap up today's episode. Any last thoughts, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, the last kind of thought for me on creativity, kind of one of the last things to say that we do in our business is try to be nimble. Like, try to go fast, try to fail fast. Don't worry about things being perfect. It takes a lot of reps to get this stuff right. Don't be afraid to try stuff. And in beer, again, because it's so competitive, you've got to try, and some stuff's going to fail. Some stuff's going to fail amazingly, miserably. And then, some stuff you're going to hit. So, don't be afraid to be nimble and get those ideas from anywhere. So for sure.
Nick, can I ask you a question as we close up too? Where are you looking for inspiration? I mean, you sent me that case study on a site that I hadn't ever been on, even as a marketing guy. I mean, where are you looking for inspiration for marketing ideas that we could maybe point other people to?
Yeah, in terms of like online locations and stuff like that. I mean, so I'm a big fan, and it's funny because JT, you said this, I'm a big fan of looking outside of our industry, because if you look inside the industry, you can get super stuck, like, a lot of the time. And the last thing in the world I want to do is see what other I mean, it's great to know what other breweries are doing and know what your competition is doing, but I constantly look outside of the industry. So I'm following, and I'm a big footwear guy. I'm a huge Nike guy. I'm an Oregon kid, right? I grew up in Eugene. So, I love following what Nike's doing. I love what Nike's doing with their collaborations. So I follow that a lot. The rise and proliferation of streetwear is really interesting to me in terms of how that brand has gone from something in the shadows to something ubiquitous. So I'm kind of constantly looking on those blogs. And honestly, I read the news a lot. I have news apps that I read all the time. I try to stay outside of beer. Again, I always want to know what my competition is doing. I always want to know what the market in the industry is doing. But for inspiration, I always try to look outside. And that's how we found the Burger King thing. So yeah, it's a great piece of advice that I got that I like to give out.
Love it. Well, thanks again, Nick, for being on the show, man. JT, great to see you as always. That's another wrap of the Soapbox, guys. Appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, guys.
Thanks for joining the Soapbox, where two guys named Justin help marketing suck less. Join us next time for another episode of thought-provoking discussion, marketing dissection, and more uncontained rants on the marketing that real companies are spending real money on. Always remember, why do we market to people in ways that we don't like to be marketed to?